have the location of the meeting available to the public. The public may attend in MCSAB boardroom located at 239 North Lamar Street, Suite 207, Jackson, Mississippi, 39201. And I'll move on to the roll call and announcement of quorum. As I call the names of the authorized board members, please state the location of your presence for this meeting. Jean Cook, I'm present in the boardroom. Lee Durrett.
Present in the boardroom.
Thank you. Bill Billingsley.
Present in the boardroom.
Don Hinton.
Hello, Henry Bird.
Oh, okay. All right, good, thank you. Kimberly Reedmack. Present. Jennifer Whittier. Present in the boardroom. Candace Rogers. Present in the boardroom. The quorum of the authorized board is present for the purpose of conducting this meeting, and we have almost every single person here in person. This is our greatest number and a number of guests too. Calling this meeting is called to order at 1:02 p.m. Now we will move on to the Pledge of Allegiance and the adoption, and invocation, sorry.
Everybody can stand for the invocation, will be followed by the pledge. Dear Lord, thank you for bringing us together today to do the business of the children of Mississippi. Please guide us that our decisions are the best for you and the best for the people involved. In your name we pray, amen. Salute, pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now we'll move on to the adoption of the agenda. Board members, you received a copy of the agenda. At this time, I will entertain a motion for approval of the agenda, and please identify yourself for the record.
Bill Billingsley, I move we approve the agenda.
Second.
So moved, Kimberly Reedmack.
Any discussion? None. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. All right, now we're moving on to approval of the minutes of the April 11th, 2022 regularly scheduled meeting of the MCSAB and the May 24th special call meeting. You've all received a copy of the minutes from both of these meetings. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to accept both.
Bill Billingsley, so moved.
And second,
Second, Kimberly Reedmack.
any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Right, the motion carries. Okay, and now we've gone to the chair report. Just a couple of things. You've all in your agenda received a copy of the lovely thank you card from Dr. Pomchar's family and mom's, of course. So thank you so much for that. You're still in our prayers.
Thank you.
We had 2 check-in meetings with schools. Dr. Pay and I, one with Ambition Prep and one with Clarksdale Collegiate. This is the last regular scheduled board meeting. And I guess between the 2, we talked a bit about the performance framework and specifically next steps and the school-based, school-selected indicator. Again, these are informal meetings, and these are just kind of a couple topics that come up. One question that came up was about national board certified teachers. You may know that in a traditional public school, national board certified teachers get a salary bump, and if it's to the legislature stipend. And it's, I guess you and the attorneys looked into whether it's applicable to charter school. Do you have that in your report as well? Okay, all right, I'll let you talk about that before we get to that. We'll be sure, I don't think we did this last time, to share the invitation to the next meeting with board members. And I know we can't all go, or kind of, I guess you could, but it would be a public meeting, it would be a quorum. But if some subset if you want to attend as well, because there is a desire on the part of school leaders for more collaboration and commitment, communication from board members and school leaders. So I guess we'll be looking to the fall to do that. And I know we have one school leader here, I forget, Ms. Johnson from Clarksdale Collegiate, so you can chat informally after meeting with her there. And lastly, I want to congratulate Ambition Prep. I had a ribbon cutting on May 20th. I don't know, I wasn't able to go, and I know that Dr. Kay wasn't either. I don't know if that other board members went, but I wanted to just publicly recognize them and congratulate them for that milestone. It's a big deal. So, and that concludes my report. And we'll move on to the executive director report.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. couple of things I had on my report were the same as yours, so I'll just kind of build off of those and then go back and start at the beginning. But Bailey did research the questions for our schools regarding the National Board stipend as well as the EEF procurement card funding. And those are two benefits that traditional school teachers get. One is a stipend, one is money to spend for classroom supplies that our teachers are not eligible for. And so in her research, and you can fill in any gaps that I might leave there, but basically it would take legislative action it has to do from the way the law was written back in 2013.
Are our teachers on the same pay schedule?
They are not on the same pay schedule, and that is, I believe, one of the rationales for probably what they found out in her research, and that's one of the reasons, because they are not required to be paid the same for the same salary. So we can pay more or we can pay less, and because of that, I think that was probably the rationale. I wasn't there, so but I can't assume based on the information that we have. But having said that, we did do the research and do know that it would take legislative action to get them to be eligible for either of those programs. So, also, I had on there my report, the ambition ribbon cutting. Unfortunately, I was unable to attend to. That was right after my dad had passed away, and so I just was not able to get there. But did certainly congratulate DRG and his team on their growth and their expansion of their building. I do know that when we did our fall tour, we got to see quite a bit of what they were doing, and it was beautiful. So I know that the finished product looks outstanding. So several other things since the last time we've met. I did complete and submit the no-cost extension to the USDE. That is for our CSP, our charter school program. I'm going to try to eliminate as many acronyms as possible. Since you guys are new, but the charter school program grant is a $15 million grant that the agency was awarded back in 2017. It is going to sunset, and my last day to draw down any funds from that is January of 2030. So we are in no cost extension periods now, and the feds can make a decision to extend that funding or not, depending on how things have progressed with the spending of the dollars. And I'll address that during Denise's report as well. But again, since we've met and had an opportunity to talk, I've also had several meetings with some national leaders in the charter field, Building Self-Sustain, which was formerly Building Excellent Schools. Had a couple of really, really good meetings with them, and the Charter School Growth Fund and the National Charter School Institute as well. So those have been ongoing and really good, productive meetings. I've been attending trainings with NACSA. Jordan and I both attended trainings from the National Charter School Resource Center and the National Charter School Institute, in particular with an emphasis on charter school board governance. That's going to be a real emphasis for us going forward, because I don't believe that our charter school boards, governing boards, have had a lot of training. And it's really important because our contracts are with those charter governing boards. It's really, really important that they have the training and understanding of what their responsibilities are with respect to the contract with the authorizing board. So that'll be something that we'll be talking a lot more about going forward. Continuing my work with the NACSA Leaders Program and weekly meetings with my leaders coach, which has just been outstanding. Jane was able to get a chance to meet with her as well during some of our school check-ins, and she's delightful, and she's learned, and she's an expert in charter school finance. She's a former executive director for the Central Michigan University as an authorizer, and she has opened and closed 30 plus schools, closed over 13 schools for several different reasons, and opened over 30 schools during her time at CMU. So she's full of information, knowledge, and expertise, and she's just really a joy to work with. We did complete our trial run with all the schools and on the framework, and we are collecting feedback to present to you guys in July, so that will be ongoing. I feel really good about the process. I think we've had outstanding meetings. We've gotten some good feedback from some school leaders and really feel good about the process and how it's worked. So I'm super glad about that and glad to be moving forward with that process. It's been a labor of love. Also, as always, in your backup materials, you have this time you have two newsletters. You have one from May, and then you have one from June as well. And I do want to point out that the school tour that was scheduled for May 16th, we were supposed to go to Republic, Smiley Prep and Smiley Collegiate, and their schools had power outage that day. And so we ended up, I called Kevin at 6 o'clock in the morning or something and said, can we come to Midtown today? And we're bringing folks from the governor's office and the lieutenant governor's office. And are you okay with that? And he said, come on. So he was really excited to be able to show off the school. And I think everybody enjoyed being there and seeing the children and just being able to tour the school again. And I don't think the folks that were there, even Candace and I don't think they had ever been there. So it was kind of a different group from the fall. So it worked out really well. But they were delighted to be able to host it for us and get to go into some classrooms. And I think, Jennifer, do you want to talk a little bit about what you were able to see afterwards that was exciting?
I was so impressed with the creative writing class that Jordan and I were able to walk into and simply made a suggestion that, maybe they'd like to send some of their writing to us and let us see it. I don't know if all of you got copies of that. I'm not sure that just getting to share it, fabulous. Yeah. The writing was so impressive. And to keep in mind that these are 8th graders. And I was very impressed and sent, those comments back to the teacher and the student and together. So I appreciate being able to go in the classroom and then they're sending me their writing. It was nice.
It was excellent. Yeah, I think so. I don't think Kevin would mind if we send it out to you guys. I didn't want to put it we talked about putting it back in the backup material, but since it was student, I felt like we needed to protect the rights of the student.
It was impressive. It was one.
Be in line with FERPA, so we don't want to take advantage of FERPA. So yeah, it was really, really well written. So you guys will enjoy it. So we'll check with Kevin and make sure he's with that. Send it out to you. Okay, the next thing I think in your packet is just a copy of a letter that went out to the Secretary of Education for USDE, just to express our opposition to some of the proposed regulations that are for the new charter school program, for the grant program, for the federal program. Also sent emails to senators and representatives in addition to this letter that went out to them to express our opposition. Any questions about the letter or any of the backup material?
Receive response.
No. No response. A good question. The next thing.
I wonder if we're going to be able to check and see how much feedback they got. I mean, that's
They
public
do.
comment period.
Yeah, they
usually
do
tell
post it. They don't usually send out a big,
100,000 letters or whatever.
Yeah.
I'd like to know what kind of feedback they got because
there's a lot of,
it's a big deal
yes,
to charter school.
yes,
That's probably
huge.
not too long of
right. Okay, next item, is the, list of applicants, that are moving on to, stage 2. You have 9 applicants listed there, proposing 10 different schools, and you can see the locations and the grade levels that they propose to serve. This is almost twice as much as we had last year. We had only 5 that went to stage 2 last year, so this is really exciting to see that many more moving forward. And this is the threshold quality review portion of the application cycle. And so what the reviewers will do, they'll look at they'll take a deep dive into certain areas only. So they'll look at the charter school obligations, they'll look at serving student populations with respect to special needs populations, at-risk kids, they'll look at discipline, they'll look at their startup plan for staffing, for hiring, for organizational structure, they'll look at governance, they'll look at personnel, and they'll look at their financial plans. So those will be the primary areas that they'll look at before they determine whether or not they're eligible to move to the next stage.
What happened to the one in Hattiesburg?
I think just not ready. Yeah. So, but excited about that. That's really, really encouraging again.
And there are 2 in Patches.
Actually, there are 3.
One of those
And-
would be last year.
Yes, one is a repeat, and then actually, I think there's really 4. There's really 4. Yeah, because if you count the repeat from last year, you've got one group, that's applying for 3
Oh, I
different.
see, I see.
So. And we got a lot of letters of support for that group, so that was encouraging too. All right, the last thing I think I have on my report then is the congressionally directed spending. Senator Hyde-Smith's office had reached out to me a couple of different times about writing a proposal for funding for some of our schools. And this is, they call it CDS, congressionally directed spending, and it's, I think, kind of an earmark, basically, is what happens. And so she has accepted the proposal. She has submitted it to be a request for funding to the subcommittees. But it takes about a year to get through the entire cycle. So we won't really know much, it's just been submitted within the last few weeks. So I was working on it while my daddy was in the hospital and trying to finish it up and submitted it, I think like the day or so I got back maybe. With Jordan's help, we got it submitted and accepted and moving forward. So I'm excited and hopeful that we'll get some additional funds for the schools, especially if they don't give us the no-cost extension. Some of these schools that are significantly expanding will be able to use those dollars if they fund it. So, and I think that ends my report. Unless anybody has questions.
Okay, thank you. All right, moving on to the financial report. Denise is here to present.
Is this turned on? Can y'all hear me?
Is it green?
It's green here, but not here.
That's right. Is that right?
Can y'all hear me? Some of y'all are new, so you don't know me. I'm Denise Durosset. I'm with Cornerstone Consulting Group. And when y'all became an agency, you decided that what you needed to do for internal control purposes and for understanding the state budget and financial processes, that you would hire an outside firm to take care of all your financials. And so Cornerstone was actually selected during that time, and we've been your representative ever since. And so I just kind of wanted to let you know who we are and what we do for you. We do this type of work in about 20 other state agencies. So just wanted to kind of give you that background. So one of the things we do is we prepare your financial reports and present them to you at each board meeting. And so what we typically do is show you what has been expended since the last time you met. So the last time we presented a report was 2 months ago. And so since that time, your expenditures have been right at $45,000 in these 2 months. And all of that came from the state general fund. So you have 2 pots of money, for those of you who may need to know that. The general fund is money that comes from tax dollars and that is appropriated by the legislature. Your special funds are money that comes from the schools and other sources, such as federal dollars. And the special fund money stays with the agency year after year, but the general fund has to go back to the state if you don't spend it. So we work very hard to try to spend all of those general fund dollars to start with. And this year, your appropriation was $229,000, a little bit. And so all of the money that we've spent in the last 2 months came out of the general fund, and the state fiscal year ends June 30th, and we will have spent all of that money when we run payroll next month, or next week. You will have spent all of your general fund money, and we'll be spending out of your special funds. We also try to report separately on your CSP, on the federal grant dollars. And so there's a separate part of your budget for that. And the only expenditures in the last 2 months were for technical assistance that was provided by Professional Polish. And then there was payments to LaFleur Legacy for reimbursement of operating expenses that qualified for the grant. the end of May, Dr. Carmatier and I looked at all of the expenses for the entire grant since it was awarded originally. And there were $3,224,820 expended in those grant funds. Of that, 2.6 million went directly to the schools. And they were mostly for startup. They get about a 3-year period where they can apply for money and get reimbursed for expenses. And so almost 90% of the CSP funds go directly to the schools. There was also 480,000, and a little bit more than that went for technical assistance to support the schools. Only 3% of grant money stays in the agency for administrative expenses. 2 schools were awarded CSP grants, and they have not yet claimed any reimbursements. And so I'm sure that's one thing that Dr. Carmatier wants to talk about, because they have not submitted for reimbursement. And she's already admitted that we're looking at a no-cost extension. And so what that means is we were given that $15 million, we've only spent $3 million. We're asking for them not to give us any more money, just allow us to spend some of the money that was already awarded in the future dates. And so, do you want to expand on that?
There's just around 7 million left in G5 right now that we have access to. So it was 11, we've spent down a little over the past year. But what Denise is saying is really important, and it has been puzzling to me. We've talked about it a little bit before at one of our other meetings, the fact that 2 schools in pre-opening have not spent a penny. They don't start receiving any MAP dollars until they start serving children. And so typically this is operational money that they really need access to. And so I haven't quite figured out why they have not submitted any claims, but neither of the schools have. And so we are going to be at the mercy of the USCE, and they may or may not choose to allow us to spend those dollars that are so in the bank, so to speak. And just, we may not get that cost extension. I'm hopeful we do. I've submitted all the rationale and reasons that they should, and we'll see what happens.
What's the feedback from the school?
I have asked, and we've met one-on-one with the schools, and they just, we're working on what we can do for reimbursements, and we're working on claims. And the last time we met, just a week or so ago, one of the schools said, we'll have to have $100,000 and something of claims due by the end of the week. And
So they're spending the money, they're just not applying for the reimbursement.
Well, that's what we've been told, but they haven't submitted anything for reimbursements.
Which schools?
SR1 and Revive Prep. No, that's fine.
Would there be any reason?
I really don't know. I mean, I would think if it were me and I were out there opening a brand new school, I would be wanting to access every bit of those dollars, because those are my only operational dollars outside of something philanthropic that I might have access to be able to purchase, equipment, to be able to purchase desks, to be able to purchase materials, to be able to pay salaries. That's the only time you can use that money is for salaries, is in your pre-opening or planning year. You can't use it in your implementation time. And so I don't know why they're not, but it's concerning to me, and it has been, and they've been notified in writing that this is where we are. And the last day to draw down monies for this period is September the 30th, and it's spending by December 15th. So I'm pretty sure Denise was copied on that correspondence, so they know.
So
They know
is
where
that
we are.
the last day for them to submit the paperwork?
The last day to submit any claim is September the 30th for this year. And then depending on the cost extension, if it's approved, of course, we could go out to the next year. You can only go out for another year. 3022 be September 3023. So. But that's good news on CSP.
So if y'all don't have any other questions about 22, I would like to move into 23 budget, okay? So I told you our fiscal year ends June 30th, so that means our new fiscal year starts July 1. And last time we met, I told you that for the first time, we've had a higher amount of general funds. We were awarded $300,000, which is the highest ever since y'all have been an agency. And so Dr. Comatera and I sat down and met and said, how do we want to put this down into a budget? The legislature just says, hey, you've got $300,000 for general funds, $500,000 in special funds, so you have a total of $800,000 in the lump sum. And so we try to figure out how we're going to spend that and then give that to y'all so that it sets our guidelines for spending, and then we don't have to come back to you for budgetary reasons during the year. And so we have sat down and prepared a budget, and I think that's in your packet. Switch over to my copy.
It's under action items.
Action item G, that's the last action
Do
item.
you want me to just go over, or do you want me to wait till your action items, because it's new business?
However you guys prefer.
I think, if you want to talk about it now, we can still vote on it later, the action item works, if that's,
Okay.
yes, that's the board.
So, we based the salary amount on having 3 full-time staff members, although you only have 2 at the current, in the past you've had 3. So we went ahead and budgeted for having 3 different staff people. And I went ahead and budgeted everything into the operating budget and not splitting it into the CSP budget because we're not really sure where that's going to be. So just gave us that authority in case we needed it. We increased the travel budget from what we had in this current year because of the COVID restrictions ending and also because you're getting to do more site visits and having more schools. And so we went from $6,000 in travel to $10,000 in travel. We factored most of our increases into the contractual line items, and we did that because we know of some increases, and I think some of them are on the action items as well, but we know that some of the vendors have said, hey, we're going to go up on these standard costs in the future. We also factored in what we spent in the current year and what we project, and so we have added more into the contractual line items. And what we did is in the past, we tried to line item it out to give it to you. And then last year we started saying, hey, we don't know what these actual items are going to be or who these vendors are going to be. So what we'd like to do is just give you a budget that says, this is for technical services, contractual services. And then as we go through an RFP, a request for proposal process to get vendors in, then we'll bring those to you, set the budget for those line items at that time. So we've set aside a dollar amount of $250,000 just for technical services, but we would move that into like specific vendor contracts as the year goes on, but it wouldn't change the budget. We thought that was just a more expeditious way to handle it, especially since y'all like short board meetings, so that we could do that. We reduced the commodity lines and the equipment lines for next year based on what we're currently spending. Didn't see any reason to keep them at those same levels. So the overall proposed budget for FY23 is $688,760. That is $111,240 less than what you were appropriated. So we never try to budget for the whole appropriation. That gives us some leeway there. And then we went ahead and prepared a CSP budget, even though we're not really sure where that's going to be. And what we based that on, we kind of figured out where the school budgets would be. If we can give each school the $450,000 for a 2-year, and what maybe the potential schools would be, we thought that the school budget would be right at $2.7 million. And then we are allowed to spend up to 40% for technical assistance. That's not right, 10% for technical assistance, and 3%.
7% for technical assistance.
Thank you.
3
3 for the administrative. So,
9%.
yeah, so 90%. So we figured out what that 90% was going to be, and then we backed into the administrative cost and the technical assistance cost. So the total CSP budget was right at $3 million if we did get that no cost extension.
Okay, any questions?
Does the CSP money carry over if we don't spend it, or?
That's what the no cost
That's what the
extension.
no cost extension's about. So
That money that we have goes through September right now, and again, as long as it's obligated by September.
This is for next year, so we'd have to do another no cost extension.
well, I've already done
Next
that. Yes, and you can only
Every
do
year.
it, but you can only do it a certain number of times.
Oh.
And then they say that's it. We've already had one. We're in a no-cost extension period right now because they did not do a continuation for us last year. They required us to do one. Even though the grant didn't technically end until 22 and was not seeing a lot of expenses coming from here, so, they said no.
It may be helpful to know when they gave that grant, it was like a 5-year grant.
Yeah.
And so, but the first amount was for the first 2 years. And then the next amount was for 2 years, and then there was a final one. You still are in that first 2-year cycle because you have not spent the money that was allocated for you in that first grant period.
From 2017 to 2019, even though there were dollars expended, nothing was drawn down until 2019 when I got here. So, no, there was some money spent, but there was nothing coming out of G5 until then.
That's right.
Somebody had to,
Nobody was, there was nobody here. Yeah.
We were without an executive director for 7.5 months.
Yeah.
So,
This was a one-time 5-year grant.
correct, that's correct.
Okay, so that's, we're trying to just extend to get it all spent.
Yes,
basically.
and that's what
then
we
it's gone. Eventually, at some point it'll be gone.
And that's why she always refers to it as a no-cost extension. We're not asking for more money, we're just asking for it
Authority to spend.
Spend it. Mhm.
in the future.
That's right.
Any other questions? All right, thank you. All right, doesn't look like we have committee reports or requests for public comment today, so we'll move on to new business. First item, action item is consider approval of that SR1 request for delayed opening, and Dr. Comachara will present.
I think I had shared with you guys earlier that I had some concern about whether or not SR1 was going to be in a position to open for this fall to serve children. And as it turns out, they are not. They were without facility and they are struggling to some degree, trying to determine how they're going to organize themselves with a governing board that will be meet the spirit and intent of the law and keep them out of trouble with conflicts of interest. So you have a backup letter requesting that delay, and that would be just my recommendation that the board consider that delay and approve it. The board would so choose.
Any questions about that? Okay, at this time, I'll entertain a motion to approve SR1's request for a delayed opening.
Bill Billings, I still move.
And second,
Jennifer Lear, second.
any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? And the motion carries. The next action item is approval to begin the Administrative Procedure Act process to establish a temporary rule to conduct renewals for the 22-23 cycle pursuant to Mississippi Code 372833. Dr. Comachara will present.
What you have in your packet is a modified version of the renewal guidance and application and rubric that we've had in the past. There's some changes to note that included in the references here and the review of previous framework reports along with the new framework. So on page 5 in the first paragraph, you would notice that there's a reference to the old framework and to the new framework because it's going to have to be sort of a hybrid because the schools were underneath the old framework as well as the new framework during this time frame for renewals. So just a little point out there. Also, you'll have limited data because of COVID. So you will not have as much data to consider for these schools that are being renewed during this time. We removed some language from the original that locked the board into decisions and added some language into these documents that will give you some leeway for professional judgment. So the old guidance locked you into an if this then that, and you will recall what happened with one of the schools in renewal last year where you just didn't have an opportunity to use professional judgment because of the way the guidance that was written. So we took that into account and made adjustments for that. We also aligned the rubric to the revised guidance. We included some language that will allow the schools to update or include their financial policies through hyperlink before they had to submit the entire initial packet and policy manual. And so we've given them the opportunity just to put it in through a hyperlink so we can access it that way. And then we added a requirement to include their conflict of interest policy and their bylaws in the application this time. Conflicts of interest, bylaws, governance continues to be on our radar for additional reviews. So,
Are there any questions? No? At this time, I will entertain a motion to approve, to begin the Administrative Procedures Act process to establish a temporary rule to conduct renewals for the 2022-23 cycle pursuant to Mississippi Code. Annotated 20, I don't know if I'm doing it right, 37, 28, 33.
This is Bill Billings, I so moved.
And second,
Kimberly,
any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, next is action item C, approval of the RFP to conduct the legislative annual evaluation of Mississippi's public charter schools performance. Dr. Carmichael, present again.
Yeah. This is the annual report that's due to the governor and the legislature on or before October 1 of each year. And that is a statutory requirement. The last time we did one, it was in 2019. And the cost for that was around $60,000. And that's when they do a propensity score matching because the law requires that they do a comparison of the performance of the charter school students to those who they are paired with academically, ethnically, economically, comparable groups within the districts, within the schools in which they're located. And the report has to include successes and challenges and an assessment on whether or not the number of schools we have meets the demand of students who want to enroll. So that's just an RFP so that we can go out. Bellwether conducted this in the past for us. And we have not done one since 2019 because of that. Let me get that on the record correctly. We did do one, but we did it in-house. And the schools did a summary and I did a note and then we had it printed and shared, but we weren't able to do any data analyses without any data.
Any questions about that? I was going to ask who did it last time. You already answered that, so the last two times. Okay. At this time, I will entertain a motion to approve the RFP to conduct the legislative annual evaluation of Mississippi's public charter schools' performance.
Jennifer Whittier, so moved.
Bill Billings, second.
Okay. All right. Any discussion? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Next, action item T is approval of Epicenter contract renewal. Okay.
This is just an annual contract that Epicenter handles our platform for our document housing, and schools submit their required submissions annually through this platform. And so this is just an annual renewal. This is an increase in what we've had before, but it's our understanding in conversation with Epicenter that we had gotten a new sort of a deal before because we were a new authorizer. And so we are under what they presented initially, did a little negotiating and got it under what they proposed initially, but still more than it has been. So
Is there a requirement for us sending this out for bid or request for proposal?
they're a sole source, and we did get sole source backup material for them as well.
Any other questions? All right, can I get a motion to approve that Epicenter contract renewal?
Bill Billings, so moved.
Second?
Leader, it's a.
All right, any discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. All right, now, we're to action item E, approval of Cornerstone Consulting contract renewal, and it's going to, Chris, yes, step out. Is that?
Thank you. Again, this is just an annual contract. You heard Denise kind of give you an overview of what she does for the authorizer and has done for, I guess, since the inception of the board. So I would just ask the board again to consider her services. She does a great job for us and helps keep us up I make a motion, Kimberly Remark, that we, continue with the contract.
A second?
Sheriff will be your second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. All right, next, action item is, F, approval of the Sonic Wall renewal.
This too is an annual, you can tell it's the end of the fiscal year. An annual, contract. This keeps us out of trouble for the firewall. This is our, firewall services to keep the internet safe and secure. So that's what this is. It's a minimal expenditure and it just comes around annually. So again, just ask the board to consider that.
Okay, for this, all right. Oh, I guess we haven't been hearing from Don on the phone. Okay, so Don, we want to hear you on the phone with your nays, or yays or nays. Okay, so are there any questions about Sonic Wall renewal? No? Okay. May I get a motion to approve Sonic Wall renewal?
So moved.
Nice. Can I get a second?
Candace Robbins, second.
Okay, is there any discussion? All right, all those in favor, let's hear you.
What do you want to talk about?
Okay.
You're gonna know.
Okay, Mr. Henry, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, do you vote in favor of this? We didn't hear your vote on the Sonic Wall renewal.
Can you hear me okay?
Okay, got it, I'm sorry, okay, any opposed? Okay, that motion carries, thank you, sorry, Danielle. All right, action item G, the approval of the fiscal year 23 proposed budget, which James presented earlier. Is there anything else you want to say about that? Okay, okay, are there any questions or further questions about the 23 budget?
I make a motion that we approve the 2023 operational budget.
Okay, can I get a second?
Sheriff will be your second.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Henry.
Yes, I'll tell you in a minute.
Okay, we don't hear from residents, but okay. All right, so any opposed? All right, that motion carries. All right, so now we are going to, have you up to the consideration of executive session. We had a motion.
I move that the board go into closed session for the determination of the need to go into executive session.
Okay. Can I get a second?
I second that motion.
Okay.
At this time, we will,
Oh, do I do all in favor? Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? Okay. And then to the board room. That's how many to the board room. Okay.
I want to end the live stream.